Hey, welcome back. I'm Ferrikster, here to bring you some more Pokemon Go GBL battles. These battles take place in Open Ultra League. It has been so long since I played Open Ultra League that I actually had to kind of relearn how to play it. So in the process of that, had to kind of build myself a new team and wanted to steer a little bit clear of some of the things I've used before. In the spirit of this season not really mattering, aside from running my weekly challenge, I do still play solid teams and play normal games occasionally. So this is the team that I've been using for the last, I guess, 2 days. Not really the biggest sample size. I usually like to wait a little bit longer. But since we only get about 1 week, since we only get exactly 1 week for every league rotation, kind of do have to churn these out a little bit faster. So if there is some large hole in this team that I haven't had yet, might exist. Maybe I just didn't find it yet. But so far I've been having pretty decent luck, and most of my games have been very close. It's just a lot of them have come down to a lot of my losses came down to minor errors in my execution, so I expect to kind of clean that up, and maybe after going over these two sets, you'll be able to get off to a slightly smoother start. So this first game had Toxicroak in the lead. That's the kind of I do like to see with this team any kind of fighter in the lead. I know when they have a fighter in the league, that's probably their primary answer to a G-Fisk, so I don't really have to be as concerned as with there being some other counter user in the back. And since, a fighter will go pretty evenly with a Poliwrath, makes me feel like G-Fisk will be pretty comfortable. That's exactly what ended up happening in this game. With Toxicroak in the lead, the backline ended up being weaker to G-Fisk than normal. I swapped into Muck here to try to catch a Focus Blast, and it turned out that the Ampharos was running Zap Cannon, so that was fine. Like, they're going to farm me the whole way down, but once you've seen Zap Cannon, it would be really unusual for them to be running Focus Blast, Zap Cannon, double nuke Ampharos. So, yeah, felt pretty safe here when G-Fisk came back out. They are just running a mono-electric moveset, which, I mean, if you're going to run any kind of mono-typing moveset, Electric is a pretty decent choice because it is literally only resisted by ground. That happens to be the Pokemon that I have lined up with my opponent's Ampharos, so this matchup went my way. But yeah, interesting moveset choice. So, into this next game, up against Haruto. Poliwrath into Scrafty. So, another fighter in the lead makes me feel like G-Fisk will probably be pretty good in the back. Poliwrath will win this matchup pretty well. My opponent switches into Mandibuzz, and I swap out to G-Fisk after building up a little bit more energy. While I could have thrown an Ice Punch or something to chip, I'm not really that familiar with Stunfisk into Mandibuzz. Neither of them are Ultra League Pokemon that I use very commonly, even though I understand they're very, very meta. So I didn't have a lot of experience with their actual interactions. And to be honest, I thought Stunfisk would be better against Mandibuzz than it turned out to be. Like, this is actually a pretty neutral matchup. Like, I am going to outpace slightly. So they are going to get this Dark Pulse off, and I'll be able to throw, Rock Slide and outpace to the next one. Although my opponent swaps in to try to make a catch. It wasn't really a catch, but I ended up having to throw anyway, kind of a panic throw to give me a second to think. Lack of familiarity with a team, definitely leads to a lot more of those than you should. But really, since Poliwrath's Dynamic Punch would pretty much one-shot, any kind of chip damage that I was going to do against Scrafty is a complete waste. Like, it would have been better to just bank that energy, switch into Poliwrath right away, so I can get these Dynamic Punches out faster. But that's alright, so they're going to throw their next power-up punch here. I figured this might even end up being a foul play. It was just another punch, and they were able to switch out just in time to catch this Dynamic Punch on their Mandibuzz, who also sneaks in a Snarl. That leaves Mandibuzz pretty low. I know they'll get to a move, so I switch out to catch their move on Muck. picking up that aerial ace, and I'm going to be able to poison jab the rest of the way down. So, the first time I guess I'm pulling Muck out here and actually getting some use out of it. There's a Swampert in the back. Swampert is quite good against Muck and obviously completely annihilates G-Fisk. I am able to take out a Swampert with just a pair of Dark Pulses, so I kind of have to call this correctly here. If it is a Hydro Cannon, I'll survive it. If it was an Earthquake, I would die. And their switch timer ran out, so they are able to catch this Dark Pulse on their Scrafty, which also I wouldn't even really have had the option of banking that, because I had to at least throw something to just stall out the switch clock a little bit, because our switch timers are getting pretty desynced. Gonna throw this Dynamic Punch. It's gonna be enough to take out Scrafty, but at this point all of my Pokemon are kind of too injured to take out Swampert. So I'm waiting out the switch clock. The game timer is starting to run out also. If I could have reached any kind of a move, I might have been able to prevent them from getting to a Hydro Cannon and maybe like stalling out for switch. But as it is, didn't quite make it to another move, so yeah, I get mud-shotted down. So, close game. I definitely could have executed that better, but yeah, also tons of catches by my opponent. Really well done there. So, Poliwrath into Obstagoon. Dynamic Punch is going to one-shot Obstagoon. I'm not going to get to land one here. Like, I could have spammed it out and landed it by now, but I was so concerned they were going to make a catch. They end up switching into a Crobat, and again, because I'm kind of new to the team, I throw an Ice Punch just to kind of stall for time and to see how much it does, and it does about 40%, but kind of a pretty substantial waste of energy. Like, it would have been better to just store the energy, have 2 Dynamic Punches loaded, because I already know that, you know, G-Fisk is going to be kind of a decent Crobat wall. Since they decided to go for Shadow Ball first, I'm just going to farm them the whole way down and with 100 energy. Gonna throw this Poison Fang, which does like no damage, and I'm able to Mud Shot the rest of the way down and with 100 energy. I am spamming out Rock Slide right now, because I figured if there was any chance that they were going to shield something, they would shield the first move, because normally you would throw the Earthquake first. And then I'm going to try to throw the Earthquake, but my opponent gets to a move. I'm going to let it go, because I don't actually need to do any chip damage to Obstagoon, since, you know, Poliwrath will one-shot either way. Do manage to get to this Earthquake, though, since they threw something that I was able to survive, and this Obstagoon doesn't have a ton of health left, so I'm actually going to send out Muck, because then I'll be able to fast move down instead, because throwing a move with Poliwrath that would have one-shotted when they're at like 20%, just felt like it would have been nicer to send out Muck and get some farm. So I decided to let this go, fully expecting it to be an Earth Power that would KO me, and it turned out to be a Stone Edge instead. So, helpful to me. I'm able to throw this Dark Pulse, get that, get a shield. Although I don't know if that actually ended up helping me, because it really provided Nidoqueen with a ton of energy that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So was it worth it for me to stay in and do like no damage with my own Poison Fangs in order to get a shield that Poliwrath would probably be able to get anyway? Maybe not. Regardless, end up shielding that Poison Fang. I'm going to be able to get off this next Ice Punch. And I still have a shield. So even if Obstagoon comes out and is able to farm me down, which is exactly what happens, they're still not going to be able to get to 2 moves before I'm able to Poison Jab them down. So I'm just going to shield this, and as long as they don't get the boost, I am perfectly safe. And even if they got the boost, I don't think their counters would have been enough. So I'm able to take that game. That is a GG. Really close game, though. All right, next up against JD Beast. Poliwrath into Genesect. Anytime you see a Genesect, you kind of have to be mindful of what it's carrying on its back. This one's carrying a water drive, hydro drive. I don't remember the name of the part. I know it's a burn drive when it's fire. I don't know what the water one is called. I don't know. It's got water drive. So Genesect could learn. It'll generally be carrying X-Scissor along with its, you know, whatever its drive move is, or if it's got a normal type drive, then it would be running Magnet Bomb or something. So any Genesect, really, So that isn't one of the electric drives. My gosh, I don't know what that drive is called either. I'm going to assume it's an electric drive. Genesect that doesn't have an electric drive, all of their moves are resisted by Poliwrath, so it's fine. End up throwing the second Ice Punch, managed to get the KO there, and Swampert comes out, and Swampert is incredibly good against my backline. So I'm going to throw this Dynamic Punch. They let it go. That's helpful, I guess. And if I shield this, they'll know to save their Swampert, and they'll also shield and farm me down. So it's better for me to just let it go, because they're already in range of a single Dark Pulse. So I'll just save my shield advantage, because I'm definitely going to need it. And I have to make this call here, and I shield a Hydro Cannon, which is not ideal. So I go straight for the Dark Pulse. Thunder Punch is single resisted, so it definitely would not KO, and my opponent lets it go, which is fantastic for me. I think they were kind of banking on me trying to Thunder Punch bait, because it is tempting, because Swampert was pretty low. But didn't end up doing that, so going to throw this Thunder Punch. Walrein could throw an Earthquake here. If they do, they'll be energy drained, and G-Fisk will easily be able to outpace them, so I decided to just let it go. No need to risk the possibility of getting baited, since G-Fisk can 100% get to 2 Rock Slides before Walrein could even get to an Icicle Spear plus an Earthquake. Like, this can definitely be an Earthquake, but I'm going to let it go anyway, because even an Earthquake from Walrein isn't enough to KO a G-Fisk, and while I was pretty confident of that, I didn't actually know exactly how much it does, because I'm not that common of an Ultra League G-Fisk user, and I haven't even built an Ultra League Walrein, so good to find out how much that did. That'll help me feel out that matchup a little better. So, Ampharos in the lead. This is obviously a real problem for Poliwrath. I switch out to Kanto Muck. Muck is usually going to be the safe swap on this team, with rare exceptions. And since I don't want to throw a resisted Thunder Punch, I'm just going to build up 2 and throw my Dark Pulse. Since they've decided to stay in this whole time, I'm going to shield the Thunder Punch. And they switch out when they're still 1 Volt Switch away from their next Thunder Punch. And that's fine. I'm just going to throw this Thunder Punch against the Poliwrath that comes out, and they build up some energy. They are not at a Dynamic Punch yet, which would actually KO, but a neutral Ice Punch won't, because even when an Ice Punch is hitting something for neutral and the Dynamic Punch is resisted, Dynamic Punch still does slightly more damage. It's just a much stronger move and has stab, and Ice Punch is, not either of those things. Although while we're on the topic of Poliwrath and movesets, you could run Poliwrath without Ice Punch and run it with Scald Dynamic Punch. I think that's also a perfectly acceptable moveset, depending on your team comp. But that does leave Poliwrath kind of pretty vulnerable to a Giratina, which I thought I would see more of, but I saw not that many, so that might just be me compensating for something that doesn't exist yet. Whereas having Scald in a situation like this would be a lot better, because it would hit, it would hit Gramble a lot harder. And it's not like there's a ton of things that resist both Dynamic Punch and Scald. I would consider Dynamic Punch to be mandatory, because otherwise, Walrein becomes a lost matchup, and that's a really important matchup because Walrein is everywhere. So, G-Fisk is able to absorb a close combat, and it's not that big of a deal, I guess, because G-Fisk is just super, super thick. Mine is a hundo at level 50, but even though mine has a Best Buddy ribbon, it's not Best Buddied right now, because I used my Best Buddy slot on my Poliwrath, because my Poliwrath is at level 40 and actually needs to be Best Buddied to reach 2500. So, maybe not the most normal thing to use your Best Buddy slot on, but since I wasn't prepared to build another Poliwrath or an XL Poliwrath, I decided to just go with the one that I had. But managed to take that last game for a pretty alright 4-1 for this first set. And I go up to exactly where I was before. I don't know. It hurts me a little that there's no advancement. I'm actually very salty about it. So, Walrein in the lead. My opponent switches out and switches into a Mew. And I had no idea what to do about a Mew safe swap. I think it's very unusual for anyone to have a Mew in Ultra League because usually you end up saving them for Great League. But this one is at 24.99, so I guess it just had way too tempting stats for Ultra League, and they just had to do it, which is totally understandable. I waited for too long thinking about what the moveset might have been, and it does turn out that this Mew is just carrying Surf Wild Charge like the normal Great League moveset. I wasn't sure what you were supposed to run on Mew in Ultra League because I just really don't know. Like, don't encounter Ultra League Mew very often. So, not off to the most amazing start in this matchup, but we'll see if I can kind of pull this together. I decided to shield here because I know I'll be able to reach another Rock Slide, so they'll be forced to throw, and this will put them slightly lower, so maybe they'll end up in farm down range for something else. Able to get to this Rock Slide, but this is a CMP tie, so I'm just going to let it go. And I'm going to come out with Poliwrath, and they throw one Shadow Claw and are able to reach a move. I'm going to shield this, worried that it's a Wild Charge, and it is. And I have no shields. But I do have a lot of energy on Poliwrath, which is great, except that there's a Talonflame that comes out, and I'm carrying Ice Punch instead of Scald. Like, Ice Punch should be the thing that's there to kind of compensate for flyers and stuff, but since one of the most common flyers is Talonflame, Scald might make more sense. I don't know. It depends. It's trade-offs. You lose different matchups with different moves. So I end up switching out. Gonna pull Muck in and end up lined up with a Walrein. Unfortunately, since they have a shield and I don't have a shield, like even if I just had one shield and was able to shield anything, I'd be able to maybe just like Poison Jab the Walrein down. They end up landing an Earthquake. It nearly takes me out. Doesn't actually, though, and they're going to throw an Icicle Spear. I'm going to be able to come out with Poliwrath and farm the rest of the way down. And the only reason I'm staying in this was because I wasn't super clear on whether Poliwrath would win CMP against Talonflame or not. So take this Icicle Spear, and that goes down. I'm going to throw a Dynamic Punch because I thought maybe it would do a little bit more damage. I mean, I know it does a little bit more, but looking at it, I would have needed to land like 2 Ice Punches anyway, and I'm pretty sure my opponent still had a shield. So I was super dead there, but I did at least want to stay in and find out, who wins CMP. Because this is, some people look this up and run simulators. This is, I just learn out in the field. It's just, I don't know, it just feels easier like that. So my opponent swaps out in this next matchup into a Shadow Machamp. I'm going to throw a Dynamic Punch, I pick up a shield, and now I'm going to switch out to Muck. So my Kanto Muck has very good IVs. It is a rank 1. I caught it a long time ago, and even now I'm not actually able to survive like 2 Rock Slides from a Shadow Machamp. Regular Machamp I can, and it's okay. But from Shadow Machamp, have to shield one of them. Thankfully my opponent didn't bait me. They just were going straight Rock Slide. And I am able to Poison Jab the rest of the way down before they're able to get to another Cross Chop. So Walrein is going to come back out. Makes sense. They don't really need to save Walrein because it'll just end up getting walled by Poliwrath. So I'm going to unload my energy into it. Unload one Thunder Punch, and then I'm going to spam out another one. There was quite a bit of lag in this, so my opponent's probably lost track of my energy at some point. Muck wins CMP against Walrein, so good to know. And this Icicle Spear is going to take me out. I am going to come back in with Poliwrath, and there's a Cresselia in the back. I switch into G-Fisk right away. And a lot of times Cresselia that are in the back are running Moonblast. I mean, Moonblast is kind of mandatory on Cresselia, but most Cresselia that are in the back are running Future Sight, so when used as a safe swap, they don't get walled by Talonflame, which is actually a fairly common Pokemon in this league. So here, my opponent swaps out into Giratina out of Walrein, and since all 3 of my Pokemon are pretty good, or at least, at the very least, neutral-ish, if not like slightly winning against Walrein, I decide to stay in when my opponent swaps in Giratina. Like, I thought I remembered Poliwrath winning this matchup, but, as the matchup progresses, it's clear that that's actually, like, either not the case or barely the case. So, I'm just going straight Ice Punch. And, I mean, this next one is going to do not quite enough to take Tina out. And I tried to switch into G-Fisk to catch a Dragon Claw, but ended up deciding to, I'll just let it go. And now I'm not going to switch out. I'm just going to let them take me out. And now I'm going to come in and farm with Stunfisk. So with Walrein in the lead, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some other anti-fighter in the back. Turns out to be Cresselia. That's fine for me. Since most Cresselia that are in the back are carrying Future Sight, I'm at least going to stay in until I've determined something about moveset. If I get hit with a Grass Knot, that means it becomes fairly safe if I were to switch in Muck. Just because, without Moonblast, you really can't use Cresselia as, like, a swap, because then, you get walled by any Dark type or, I don't know, host of other things. So, despite realizing that this, Cresselia has Grass Knot, instead of switching out, I just stay in again. I have literally not used the switch function yet in this game. Gonna land that, and now, finally, after not using the switch for the entire game, I switch out to Kanto Muck to get a little bit of an energy lead. Able to get in 2 poison jabs before Walrein switches in, and this is fine. Like, they let one of the Thunder Punches go. That's obviously, gonna have to happen at some point. I make a call here that it's gonna be an Icicle Spear bait and save my shield again, so haven't shielded anything this game. And now I am just going to throw this Thunder Punch. Walrein outpaces Muck, but, since I was able to survive one of those, I'm just going to shield here. And because I had my slight energy lead and might be sneaking in moves, but I can't really tell, I'm going to be able to get this Thunder Punch off. They get in a move, and then they're going to throw their Icicle Spear. I have to shield this one, obviously. Like an Icicle Spear, I would survive, but I'd be way too low. And it's going to be close, but then they switch into Giratina, so now it isn't, because now I have the move, and they are still 2 Powder Snows away, I believe. So my opponent recognizes that since he didn't make that catch, the game is pretty much over, and resigns the game. That is a GG. Next up, against Ryan's Todd. Deoxys in the lead. So this is terrible for Poliwrath. I switch out to Muck against Deoxys, because it might make more sense. It might feel like it makes more sense, right, to switch out to Stunfisk, but that's actually really not what you want to do. If you switch out to Stunfisk, Deoxys will just farm up a bunch of energy, doing super effective counters, bank all of that energy, and switch out. And then, since it'll be able to Psycho Boost Muck or Psycho Boost Poliwrath, that would be terrible. So I just switch in Muck. I know I'm going to have to shield once when they Psycho Boost on their way out. But Muck is pretty okay at winning switch advantage over things, and since Muck will have an energy lead when something switches into it, there's not too many things that would be able to shut it down. So my opponent brings in Cradily, which is super unusual. They're going to throw that Stone Edge. I think I let them sneak in at least 1 or 2 Bullet Seeds already. Like, my fast move denial has not been amazingly consistent this game. And I also did not bait because I wasn't too familiar with this matchup, but it looks like if I had baited and maybe denied, I would have been able to flip that. So it's definitely a matchup that you can flip, although Cradily is really unusual. So probably not something that you have to be too concerned about. It's unlikely that you'll encounter it. Yeah, and there's a Jellicent in the back. So Jellicent is pretty good against my team in general. It's like neutral-ish. It's like slightly favored against Stunfisk and very favored against Poliwrath, regardless of Poliwrath's moveset. I tried to switch out to catch something, and Jellicent is going to throw a Bubble Beam, which I guess I'm fine with, and I am just going to Mudshot the whole way down, or at least Mudshot as low as I can. And my opponent switches out, so they're going to bring in Deoxys. I am going to start throwing my Ice Punches. Like Dynamic Punch would do a little bit more, so after that first Ice Punch, I decided, alright, let me just throw the Dynamic Punches. Try to get in all the damage that I can, because I need this thing to be lower. This is actually fine. Like, Deoxys is just hitting me with neutral counters and building up energy, and its energy is going to be able to do nothing to G-Fisk anyway. So the longer they stay in here to build to 100 energy, it doesn't really change that much. like as far as I'm concerned. Here, I'm going to switch out into Stunfisk, try to get some kind of an energy lead. End up absorbing 2 counters before they throw anything, but they definitely have wasted energy at this point, and they throw a Thunderbolt, and that's fine with me. This next move is coming out kind of early, and I'm confident this is going to be a Psycho Boost, and I'm expecting them to switch out after that. And they do, and they switch into Cradily, but I wasn't into the throwing. I was kind of expecting them to switch to the other thing, and I was hoping I could farm Jellicent down and have energy for Cradily, but they ended up coming in with Cradily and sniping, so were able to take me out. That is a GG. I probably could have played that matchup a little bit cleaner, though. All right. So Cresselia in the lead. Cresselia, another Pokemon, quite bad for Poliwrath. Cresselia in the lead usually is running Grass Knot Moonblast, so I was kind of banking on that, and no Shielded Muck. Future Sight would have one-shotted me from there, so big call. Maybe kind of a dangerous play, but I already know that I'm probably going to need my shields for later, so kind of ran the risk that they would not be carrying Future Sight, and it paid off this game. So not the best lead, but now they bring an Obstagoon out into my Muck, and that is actually fine. I mean, I resist these counters. My Thunder Punches don't do that much damage, but I mean, that with all the Poison Fangs is actually enough. Like, I'm able to survive that Night Slash, and I'm able to Poison Jab down, so I have managed to get Switch Advantage, and I haven't had to spend any shields. Of course, I haven't gotten any from my opponent either. And now I'm going to send out Stunfisk. I know this is going to have Grass Knot Moonblast, but I mean, Grass Knot is not, it hits for neutral, and it does do kind of a lot, and Cresselia is ridiculously thick, but this matchup is okay. Like, I could throw Rock Slide here, and maybe that would be the way, but Earthquake is a much more energy-efficient move. Thankfully, my opponent lets the Earthquake go. I guess they were expecting a Rock Slide bait. And here I'm going to throw my next Earthquake as soon as I possibly can, because I want them to be questioning if I even have the energy, and they let it go, and I Mudshot down, and there's a Trevenant in the back, and I stay in for too long. I wait until 5 so that they'll maybe throw their Seed Bomb and CMP with me, and they do. So I take that Seed Bomb, didn't need to shield that because, gonna survive. And I throw this Rock Slide, and my opponent shields, so that is fantastic for me. I'm gonna switch out into Poliwrath. If I did not have Ice Punch, I would be in a really, really, really bad spot here. So thankfully, this time, I do have Ice Punch. It's kind of one of those things. Poliwrath has so many useful moves. It's just, do you happen to have the right one for the situation that you find yourself in? I let the first Seed Bomb go because I know I'm going to be able to survive it, and I would have to be able to, or else there would be no way to win this matchup anyway. Gonna shield the next Seed Bomb because I have to, and throw this Ice Punch, and my opponent just lets it go because they realize that I'm going to outpace them and be able to Mudshot them down. So I managed to take that game off of that terrible lead, even though there was a Trevenant in the back, which is pretty good against the 2 Pokemon I had left. That is a GG. Not a terrible set. I go for a 3 out of 5. And I get a Poplio, which is whatever. And I have to pause for a second because I realized that that was my 10,000th win. So my 10,000th win, I take a screenshot while recording, which is usually not what I do. And I am going to claim that set and go up to nowhere, but we don't even need to see that because this is the last set and that I had anyway. Just wanted to show those 2 quick sets. Not trying to turn this into a super long video, but wanted to celebrate hitting my 10,000th win, and also wanted to drop an Ultra League team for anyone here who's looking for a super solid team to run. I like the team that I have here. It seems very flexible, and doesn't have, it has, some weaknesses, but all teams do. But overall, I've been having pretty good luck with it. And yeah, a lot of the games that I haven't managed to win, I've seen that there have definitely been ways where I could execute a little bit cleaner and would have been able to take it. So, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to do the things you know you're supposed to do at the ends of videos. You know you're supposed to do them. Watch my other videos that I've been making recently, my weekly challenges. The content is kind of different and weird, but I like that too. Let me know how you like that. Let me know how you like this. Blah, 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 blah. I'll see you when I see you.